Hi everyone, and welcome to our WGSN Hangout, this time focused on innovation at retail. My name is Rachel Arthur, and I am a senior editor here at the company, and I'm joined by a really fantastic lineup of speakers today. Beside me here, I've got Lorna Hall, who is our Head of Market Intelligence at WGSN. And joining us on the line from London and from San Francisco, we have John Very, who is the Innovation Manager at John Lewis. And we have Will Young, who is the Director of Zappos Labs. So I'm sat with a list of questions in front of me here that I'm going to obviously ask them as we continue through. But please do also send in your own. We've got the Q&A app enabled, so you'll be able to just write it straight onto the page. Also, as usual, we've got the WGSN Hangout hashtag. Please do join the conversation with that over Twitter as well. We have our team here who will be tweeting the whole way through. So, as I said, the subject today is innovation at retail. As we know, the digital age has radically changed the retail landscape. Today, keeping up is a 24/7 challenge, and words like innovation have become regular features, not just on Hangouts like these, but also in people's job titles. So to start then, I kind of wanted to explore what we actually mean by innovation and how it varies in such different types of companies. So John, maybe let's start with you. For a brand that's 150 years old, innovation might not be the kind of word one would typically associate with John Lewis. So can you tell us what it means to you and actually what all it is that you do in your role over there?
Okay, so for me, innovation is always about doing something new. But the key thing here at John Lewis is the customer. You know, how can we do something new but make a huge benefit for the customer? So the things that we're working on here in the team are looking at storytelling, you know, retail theatre. How can we create, you know, this experience that's merging the physical and the digital and really making these different multi-sensory kind of experiences for the customer? And I think it's very important as we look back over the 150 years, we now also looking forward at the next 150 years and start to create another legacy in terms of moving forward.
And I think that that physical and digital word is probably, or phrase rather, is something we'll probably hear coming up a little bit several times over as we go through this. But that segues quite nicely to you, Will, because obviously you've come from a very different angle as an e-commerce player, and also, you know, you work in what's referred to as a lab. Can you explain what that means and how that fits in with the wider Zappos offering? Because you're correct me if I'm wrong, you're not based in the same location, are you, physically?
Yep. So thanks for having me. So Zappos, a lot of you might know, is an online-only retailer. Kind of started with shoes, but kind of sells everything under the sun right now: shoes, clothing, etc. Been around for about 15 years, online only. Based in Las Vegas, our lab team is a pretty small team based in San Francisco, mix of developers, designers, and kind of our mission is how do we create new kind of, very similar to John, like new ways to engage with our customers that doesn't necessarily about selling more shoes, but just kind of creates fun new ways to engage with our customers. And because our brand was built on really great customer service, that's one of the lenses our labs team thinks about, is like, what's that next level of customer service? Social is a big part of our DNA and the things we look at in labs, but we're not like the social marketing team. We work super closely with them, but we're not the team that, you know, like optimizes Facebook posts or Twitter posts, but we definitely, social is kind of a big part of us, because I think no big brand has really cracked like that intersection of social and commerce yet, so we think about that a lot.
Nice. And Lorna, from your perspective, obviously labs is one of those phrases that you and I keep hearing at all these conferences that we're at. Is, you know, is this the way that retail's moving? Is everybody going forward with these labs? Is that kind of where it should exist, or is it kind of that role of innovation? Where does it sit?
It's really hard, isn't it? I think yes, we're seeing a lot of retailers react to this, and it seems to be that they think at the moment the way to drive the innovation fast enough is to create a lab, so that is almost separate to the business. It'd be interesting to hear the guys talk about, you know, how it interacts with the core business in their businesses, because it's almost like when you hear a lot of board executives talk about it, they're aware that in some ways, although they've got to integrate that, they've also got to ring fence it from the sort of the in the trenches area of the business as well. So it's kind of getting the balance right between separating a lab out well enough so that they can really get on with stuff and be left alone by the core business, but being integrated with the core business enough
make things happen.
Issues and make things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, for reference for those listening, you know, we're also seeing these at the likes of Nordstrom and Target and American Eagle, if I'm right. You know, so loads and loads of retailers are really pulling this out. I mean, guys, maybe, you know, let's speak to you and hear that from your perspective. You know, how does that fit in with the wider organisation in terms of how you operate? I mean, well, obviously for you are in literally a physical different space.
Yep. And I think one of the funny small world things is we're literally one floor above the American Eagle innovation team in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
It's one of those cosmic small world things. And we're maybe 3 blocks away from Target Labs. And it's funny, I think San Francisco makes sense. Las Vegas is fantastic. We're really building a tech community in Las Vegas. But San Francisco makes sense because we're surrounded by all these great startups thinking about retail. I think there's also great partners here, like the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, for us to have easier conversations with. So I think that makes sense. You know, we've been a labs team for like 3.5 years, and we're still always evolving that. How do we work effectively with the head office in Las Vegas? And that's been always an evolution. And there's always even an evolution on what we as a labs team focus on. So I think the most important thing there is just keep an open line of communication. Don't be too much in a cave and then come out every 6 months and demo something and hope people like it. So I think we try and keep that pretty strong relationship with folks in LV and keep them abreast of what we're doing and hear what is important to them and see if we can help them on stuff too.
Nice. And John, you obviously are in the space and within the same team, but you've only been in the company for 6 months, if I'm right. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of things that you've been doing or you're hoping to do?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, a lot of the things we're doing is around the people, you know, in terms of building some of the people into the team and you know, how do we capture ideas? Because we, you know, one thing I noticed when I joined the company was there's so many amazing ideas. It's how do we capture those ideas and actually put a structure in place where we can actually bring those ideas to life, which is really important. You know, and it's from that moment, it's like now we're starting to see, you know, ideas come forward where we can start to create these different experiences in store. For example, we for our 150th anniversary, we kind of put together a future room, which is on the 3rd floor of the Oxford Street store. So it's basically a journey through the history of John Lewis from its birth up until the current day, and you know, we've put some stuff with the Royal College of Art together that actually doesn't necessarily showcase material products. It actually shows the kind of minds and the way people are thinking. And I think right now that's something that we're really focusing on. How can we get that process right, and how can we, you know, start from the beginning and actually get all the ideas and then start to roll those out.
Yeah, I think that's super important. There's actually a parallel team at Zappos that is relatively new called Innovation Incubation, which is very similar to John. The interesting thing about us, like working in an industry that's established, is there's no shortage of good ideas. But the idea management is surprisingly bad. You're absolutely right. Like, you know, we'll do hackathons and 10 great things will be done at a hackathon, and they demo it and then they kind of disappear into the ether. So we have a team at Zappos that's called Innovation Incubation that is a centralized idea management. And they're not the gatekeepers of what ideas are actually implemented, but they help people to, like, say we have someone in the call center that says we should really do idea ABC. That call center person who might be at Zappos for 6 months has no idea where to take that idea. So this group at Zappos Innovation Incubation will actually help them figure out, like, steer their idea, maybe put it to the right people, or even if they're super passionate about it, give them some of the skill to say, well, we can actually help you create a proof of concept. So I think that's kind of parallel to our labs team. Because I think the important thing I always try and stress is, like, a labs team is not going to solve any company's innovation woes. There's always going to be, like, a lot of different things a team needs to try, and I think labs teams is a good part of that.
And I think to your comment you made a little while ago, Will, as well, in terms of always learning, and I think that's really important. Is, you know, we're constantly learning. You know, and it's maintaining that agility that, you know, we can react when we learn something. We actually make the changes to actually make it even stronger than it is now.
Yes.
I'm curious with that idea, you know, talking about where ideas come from. You say, you know, there are tons of them, but how do you even surface those when you're in such a huge organization? How do you bring those to the fore? And then, as you said, how do you make them? How do you then find a way of executing on them once you kind of weed out the good ones?
Yeah, so one of the first things we started doing once I started was we have something once a month called an innovation kitchen, where on the first floor here in Victoria, we pull together people from across the business, and it's an open invitation. There's no leadership in the room. It is just a place with a big white wall that we can just stand around, talk about ideas, you know. And at the moment, there's no ideas, you know, and that's not a problem. It's just giving people that, you know, that pedestal, that forum where they can come and there's no pressure to actually raise ideas. And then it's that actually making it very clear that it doesn't matter where the ideas come from. It's just giving people confidence to actually, you know, raise something and actually, you know, put something to someone else's idea or actually help construct another idea. I think that's really important.
And people come from all parts of the business with that, do they?
Absolutely, yeah. People from online, buying and brand, retail, you know, we buy pizzas, we get Cokes, you know, and we just go crazy really. And, you know, most of the time we just talk about some stuff we've seen online, you know, and sometimes we say, oh, it'd be really cool if we could do this. You know, will anything happen out of it? Maybe not. But the fact that we're all coming together, that's where it makes it really powerful. And then maybe one day, if we get one thing to actually come to life in that space, that will be a success. You know?
Absolutely.
I think one example that I really like that I've seen is there's a gentleman named Mark at Adobe, and they have this program called Kickstart. And it's similar to your Idea Kitchen, but they've actually formalized it probably better than any organization I've seen. They actually have a physical red box where if you have an idea and you kind of get a little, your idea isn't really vetted, but your manager says, okay, we'll give you 2 days to go to this Kickstart session where they kind of teach you how to bring your idea to life. And inside this physical red box is a $1,000 debit card. And it's kind of like a lean startup manual in this box. And anyone in the company can apply to it. And then you have like 6 months to show that someone cares about your idea. And it could either build a landing page, drive some Google ad traffic, do customer surveys, but you have a no questions asked $1,000 debit card. And then at the end of that 6 months, you kind of pitch, this is what I learned in my 6 months, this is what I built, I got 500 users to sign up on the landing page, and then they will graduate some red box ideas to a blue box, and that could mean like a new job for you at Adobe, which is, I think, amazing. And so I really, and Mark says, like, even if, similar to what you said, John, even if they never launched a single project, the skills that they're just giving people to kind of think outside their jobs and think about, like, what does a lean startup even mean? How do I test my ideas? They say is worth doing, just from a process point of view.
It's that multidisciplined approach as well. I do a lot of work with kind of graduates from the Royal College of Art, and that's something that, you know, their innovation design engineering is that bringing a hairdresser together with a coder, with a banker. Then all of a sudden you're really building this powerful kind of environment where you do get this serendipitous kind of way of working and things do start sparking.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, that's definitely one thing that we talk about a lot internally, is the idea of breaking down silos and bringing different people together. I don't know what you can touch on with that.
Well, I think that there's a great message there that, you know, there are lots of, when we talk about innovation at retail and we talk about labs and getting the ideas back into the company and then people actually pushing the ideas forward, part of the, you know, the blockers to that are the way companies work and have developed their processes from a legacy point of view. So it's, if you can get all those multidisciplinary, you know, people from different areas of the business involved in projects like this, then you're helping to enable the channels of communication and the breaking down of roles and processes, or just the ability, as John says, to think with other people in a different way outside of your own role that, you know, can enhance and drive these processes forward faster. Yeah, exactly. Lorna and I were talking yesterday, and you gave me a great example of Nordstrom and 2 job roles that are going on there. Yeah, the two chiefs are switching roles, and it's really interesting that, you know, that they've developed, you know, this is a business that, you know, has been innovating obviously ahead of the market on things like omnichannel, and it's interesting they've now got to a stage where they're almost testing out you know, what they've learned by switching roles to see, you know, to kind of almost break. Also, that's a great indicator of a business that's really flexible and agile and adaptable and is trying to break down those silos, pushing itself the whole time to break down those silos. That sounds so impressive to me, to just even think about the idea of being able to swap jobs with somebody and just like that to do it. You must really be in a place. Especially at that level. Yeah, exactly. I know that people switch around, but I think it's just, it does show the commitment to understanding what needs to change in businesses and how, how set in their ways retail businesses are, how much needs to change, and how to further that process the whole time.
I want to talk a little bit about collaboration, John, as you spoke about, and startups and stuff. But actually, first, Will, I wanted to go back to you. So Will and I were actually on a panel together at South by Southwest, and Will, I wanted you to tell the story of the Zappos bakery, because it's been one of my favorites ever since, and I keep telling everyone about it. So I'd love you to share it here.
So like I said, like a labs team isn't the answer to innovation, even an idea management tool isn't. So Zappos has tried a lot of different things. One of the things we've tried and kind of sunset, but is kind of evolving, is this thing called Z-Frogs, where once a quarter, it's kind of like Zappos' version of Shark Tank. I think in the UK it's called Lion's Den or something like, pitch session where you got to pitch the executive.
Dragon's Den.
Right. And obviously because we're Zappos, it's much friendlier. It's not like cutthroat or ruthless or anything. But literally anyone in the company could pitch any idea to like Tony, our CEO, our CTO, our CMO, or just our C-level executives. And it could be ideas from, for example, probably relevant to WGSN is 3 years ago we had 2 people coming out of merchandising and they pitched, I think Zappos should have a dedicated trends team. And they pitched that to the Z-Frogs group, and that actually, they're like, that's a good idea, and they created a trends team that still exists today and we service. But my favorite idea that was pitched was, there's someone in our call center, and she'd been working at Zappos for like 6 months, and she said, I love Zappos. Every day I see it's someone's birthday and people are bringing in cake for their birthdays. I would love to be like, create a bakery for Zappos employees' birthday cakes. And here's this person in the call center, like who's only been at Zappos for 6 months, with an opportunity to pitch that fun idea for company culture. And she's like, because we always bring all these crappy grocery store cakes, she's like, I think I can do better cakes for all our employees. And what was so fun about that is they said, yeah, let's make that happen. And they gave her a little bit of seed money to see if she could make it. She, like a lot of early investment, she tried, and she's like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. But I think that she had the opportunity to try, and I love that.
Brilliant, love it. And so it's just so fun, and like you said, it's great to have that kind of that culture embedded in the company the whole way through of innovating. In terms of the startup space, John, can you tell us a little bit about J Labs and the work that's been going on over there and the collaborations that you've been doing and seeing?
Absolutely. So as part of our 150th celebrations, we thought, in terms of looking forward, there was a better way now in terms of, supporting the kind of tech community. And that was one thing we wanted to do, is how can we get a better understanding of what's out there? So our IT director, Paul Kobe, and Stuart Marks, who is partner of this JLab, they came up with the idea, and basically we opened it in May the 20th, and we now have 5 startups in the space that are working to build their idea. So they're in this space now for 15 weeks. It closes in September, and there's a whole program mapped out for them in 2-week sprints. So we have applications in there that are building physical hardware. We've got companies that are doing proximity awareness, and we've got space design companies who are actually for room building. But what's so unique about the space is the mentors we have. We're actually helping to educate from a John Lewis point of view and an entrepreneurial point of view, to actually arm them to actually get through the incubator accelerator phase. So at the end, their product is actually relevant to John Lewis. And that's the key part we're trying to do here, is how can we help these guys to actually get the right business mentorship that we're doing through JLab.
Amazing, because I mean, I presume for both of you, with working in the space that you do, you must get pitched all the time by startups that probably are quite irrelevant.
Yes, I mean, it's something that I really enjoy in terms of, they come out and they're so fresh and they're so, they have a new idea. So the passion they have for their kind of idea is amazing. It's just, again, it's how do we kind of capture everything and have the right kind of mechanism in place. And, JLab is a great opportunity for that. We started off with, 165 applicants, and then we got down to 30, and then we finally got down to the 5. So it was a great opportunity to actually see what was out there.
And so will all 5 of those be implemented at some point into the store, or what will happen at the end of it?
We don't know. I mean, what's so good is the learning that everyone involved is getting out of it. at the end of JLab, you know, hopefully, you know, the products that they're working on, you know, we really don't know. It's every week we're learning more and more about JLab, and in terms of how we can actually roll this out after, you know, how do we do JLab next time? And I think that's what we go back to what I said earlier about learning. You know, this is an incremental step that we're taking towards being part of this startup ecosystem.
And Will, what's your experience been like working with startups? I know that you're part of a fund as well.
Yeah, with my Zappos hat on, you know, Zappos has a pretty open door. We love meeting with startups. So another reason we're in San Francisco is just to make ourselves also more accessible. Just transparently, we're not great with working at partnering with startups, because I think we have a pretty big scale, same as John Lewis. Like you get a pretty big scale, and sometimes we have just very early startups kind of coming guns blazing, like, hey, use our ad product or use our recommendation system. And the moment we kind of say, well, this is Zappos scale, like they just, you know, there's no way they're ready for it. And I think my coaching to startups is, if you're early, don't be afraid to have conversations with folks like John or myself, but like don't come guns blazing trying to sell. Just use it as like a customer development session and set better expectations. And I think people like John and I walk out of that conversation better, because we're like, we walk into it knowing that, okay, this startup just wants some help shaping their idea, versus am I walking into it as a customer where they're trying to close a deal in 30 minutes? And it's just a completely different conversation. And also I think a challenge we sometimes have working with startups is Zappos, and kind of Amazon as well, is just has a build versus buy mentality. So I always also try and set expectations with every startup that I meet with. I'm like, you know, you're not just talking to a marketing team. I have developers on my team and designers, so we build a lot of stuff in-house. So like, I would just try and set that expectation with them as well. I love the JLab idea. I heard BBC Labs does something similar, and Jenny, who was at BBC Labs, like just kind of their approach is just to surround their executives with nimble startups to kind of inspire them just through proximity, and I think that's great.
So I kind of want to flip the conversation a bit and talk, you know, rather than just the process side, actually talk about the ideas themselves and what kind of things you guys are working on, particularly, and Lorna, from your perspective, the kind of trends that we're tracking and what we're seeing happening at retail from that innovation viewpoint. So I don't know who wants to weigh in on that, but maybe let's go back to you, Will. What kind of projects are you doing? What things are you excited about? What's happening in your space at the moment?
Yeah, obviously, kind of the no-brainer is mobile, and everyone's been talking about mobile for years, obviously. But I think where that conversation, we're seeing that change is not just build a mobile app or make a mobile optimized website, but just how like a phone in people's hands completely changes the shopping experience. Like, for example, like when Amazon, which I freaking loved, launched their tweet to add to your Amazon cart. Like, that is such a good example of like, you know, us as even who started online, we're just starting to realize like the shopping funnel is no longer send people to the homepage, make them search for something, look at a product details, add to their cart, and checking out. I think mobile is changing that, like tweet to add to cart. That's strange. Or comment the word buy on Instagram and you bought something. So I think that's what we're really trying to think about is like, and I think I'm super jealous. I think a team at eBay kind of came up with the term zero friction commerce. And I think mobile is a big part of that. And I kind of, that's one of those things I'm like, God, I wish we came up with that. But I think that's where mobile is kind of pushing it. It's not just making it easier to buy on your phone, but just changing the buying experience. So we're thinking about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's really really interesting stuff, because actually what we're talking about there is not the ideas that might be brought to you by a tech startup, but the bigger ideas. And I think one of the things I just wanted to finish the labs conversation on was that, you know, I think it's on a checklist now. You know, the innovative companies have got their labs, and now we're probably going to see a second wash of companies, just because, you know, this is how work at retail. You say, oh, we need a lab. We need to, you know, fulfill the lab thing for our stakeholders, investors who've worked out that a lab is a good thing. You're an innovative business if you have a lab. You're a forward-thinking business if you have a lab. And the danger of labs when they get to that level, I think, is that, you know, the reason labs are set up is because there's all this new technology coming out that's disrupting retail and the way the customer shops. But actually, as we move into labs being, you know, there in the businesses as by right, and what people do. I think there is a danger of just being there to sort out the business's problems, and actually, because they're kind of more focused, will be more focused that perhaps in the medium term, the big ideas will go past, and the big ideas, that we've just been talking about, like, tweet to buy and that disruptive area of, the normal process of retail. So those bigger ideas that everybody has to watch, and it slightly worries me that, because of the onslaught of all the launches and digital, that bigger focus on, what actually is really going to change things, what's the next slam dunk that will make such a big difference.
So it's big in terms of being important rather than big in terms of being the more gimmicky stuff that obviously we've seen. I mean, Will and I have spoken about the idea of technology for technology's sake, and this real focus on kind of just doing something because it gets the press headlines, as opposed to really something like mobile that's obviously going to make such a fundamental difference to the business.
Yeah, and I think, it's a way, it will really be interesting to see how, these innovative cultures develop within businesses, and how they keep that kind of macro feel that, that the guys were just talking about, and the minutiae of, okay, we can take that and we can make it work to, fix this problem for the business or for the customer.
So what else are you seeing then? Obviously, we've mentioned mobile and omni-channel, but what are you tracking in the space? What particularly, if you're going to a retailer today, what's important in terms of this innovation angle specifically?
Yeah, I think it is the bigger things, like visual search, which I'm very excited about, because I just think, that totally and utterly, when it comes together in the right way, is going to change a lot of things from the way we experience and shop. The way things like new cart systems, we're starting to see talked about it, where carts can move across content and you can take your cart with you. Then we're really challenging retail brands and businesses and pure play businesses to kind of really compete on a different level. What is a brand anymore if you can shop anything?
Yeah, that universal cart idea. Yeah,
universal carts and universal content. So that's obviously. There's a long way to go on that, but it's a really fascinating idea for those of us who
something to be tracking.
Businesses. Yeah,
interesting. John, from your perspective, what kind of things are you kind of focusing on and excited about over at John Lewis?
So, I mean, at the moment, the things that we're really pushing and kind of heading towards is how can we hide technology completely? How can we make it feel you go into a store and facets, elements are interacting and engaging with you, because I think that's really important. How can you make something in a store feel as natural as possible in terms of getting from even outside a window, walking past a bus stop, you go into the store, you start this journey. How does it become this beautiful experience that does take in the heritage of the brand, takes in the values of the customer, and really merge those together? And then that's one thing we're looking at, is how can we create these playful interactions that actually immerses the customer into the different areas. Because you do go around and you see screens on walls, and I think there's a thin line between that gimmick and that innovation in terms of putting a screen up between actually making a table that is actually smart. You look at the Internet of Things that's coming. I constantly hear about different smart appliances. And one thing, last week we announced that we are now partnering on the Internet of Things launchpad with Tech City, which is another kind of way, is how can we immerse ourselves in that ecosystem to understand what's going on. So I think those are the kind of areas that we're really going to start pushing into.
Can you tell us anything about what that partnership means?
What it means is basically, we're sponsoring in terms of the brand, so we're providing potential applicants with the ability to maybe list some products with us, and it all depends on what the actual applicants have. And it gives us an opportunity to take part in the kind of the brainstorming sessions that the applicants are going to have from very early stages, where they're looking to evolve their Internet of Things. And this works with Cambridge University and some of the the great academics in the UK and Britain.
Well, sorry, I think I interrupted you. Were you going to?
No, I was just going to make, so John, we're not going to see in a John Lewis anytime soon a big Oculus Rift headset to put on and walk around the store in virtual reality.
Probably not.
that might be the hiding technology. I love the hiding technology angle. I think that's great.
And who knows? I mean, technology, and that's one of the great things about what we do, right? Technology emerges, evolves, and becomes obsolete at phenomenal rates. So, you know, what we're doing in 2 weeks' time could be different to what we're talking about now. You know, it's hard to judge and say, you know, we're going to work on this. We can have aspirations and views in terms of where we want to go, you know, and kind of, you know, we want to set trends. You know, we don't want to follow trends. We want to create our own trends. You know, we really want to create that world that when you come into a John Lewis store, it's part of a story.
Yeah, and I think that's part of a labs team versus like, because if you think about our tiny labs team, you know, we're 12 people and we have 200 people in Zappos technology or something like that. And everyone else is constantly innovating as well, right? They're constantly innovating. How do we make search results perform better, faster, improve that? And that's their kind of roadmap. But our team is like, I think exactly what John said is when something comes up that we need to kind of focus on, like a labs team is, one of the benefits of the labs team is just a bit more of a flexible roadmap and being able to jump a bit, not committed, like this is what we're doing in 2015 and all the business stakeholders are expecting that. So I think that's one of the advantages of the labs team as well.
So one of the questions we've had come in on the Q&A app I think is kind of relevant at this point. This is from Catherine Gray. She asks, what's your view on showrooming, where the physical retail space is the brand experience and the digital is where people buy? Anyone? What's your thoughts on showrooming? You must have an opinion on showrooming.
Yeah, I do. I think that, okay, so yes, you know, showrooming is a massive, you know, it's massively the way we all shop to a certain extent now. But you know, you listen to these guys speak, and they're basically trying to create that differential so that it you know, it interrupts that mindset with all of us. And of course, there are a lot of things that, you know, they're going to go that way, and you know, we're seeing retail develop at such a pace that businesses that do certain things a certain way will just disappear. So and showrooming will have a big eat-on effect to that. But then the businesses who are thinking in a different way and are adding other areas of value to what they do, you know, and they keep pushing the boundaries, thinking about the customer experience, what makes it easy and what adds value, what adds that talk about factor, that experiential value, will be able to compete still. It's just, you know, yeah, you know, we're all doing it, so, and it will only grow. But you know, I think it's, in a way, it's just a new competition, isn't it? It's basically the new store on the street times 100.
I think so. I think, and I also think it speaks to a very functional type of shopper. You know, it's not, you know, we always forget in this thing that actually a lot of people just like to go shopping.
Yes.
You know, it's the need to shop and not the want to shop kind of.
Yeah, I think we do like to go shopping, but we need to give people reasons to come out, you know, and those are all around those kind of ideas that John's talking about. You know, how do you make, you know, just those little things make a real difference? People think, no, I'll go there, and to create that whole destination. When we talk about experience and destination, there has to be other reasons to be going out other than just to purchase. And once you're providing those, I think, you know, you're on your way to battling down the showrooming community.
John, is that something that you guys are worried about over at John Lewis?
No, I mean, we welcome it, you know, in terms of the never knowingly undersold. You know, we encourage customers to challenge us on that, and I think that's something to be proud of. And you know, the customer is so important, so we have to make sure that we cater for all our customers in terms of what they want when they come into the store. So whenever we come up with an idea, it doesn't start with the technology. We start at the end of the process and understand, how do we want the customer to feel? What's the experience we want them to experience? We then work back and then start to build that solution. So we kind of flip it around and come back towards the technology. So I think that's the important part. Is we're so driven towards, you know, what does the customer want? How do we want them to feel? So I mean, yeah, we totally encourage that.
Yeah, and I think Zappos, and you know, obviously, you know, we're not like Amazon, where Amazon was really pushing people to showroom. You know, scan barcodes, get $5 off, buy it on Amazon. I think Zappos doesn't really think of it that way. I think, similar to John, I think we get kind of more of our inspiration from, you know, so just transparently, I was in Nordstrom's yesterday, and it's a fantastic experience shopping in Nordstrom's. I think, like, I bought things I never would have bought. They're extremely nice, extremely helpful. And I walked out of there, I'm like, how do I have so much stuff in my shopping bag right now? And that's a pretty amazing experience. And it didn't feel like high pressure, just, and so I think that was a little bit of like a kick in the pants for us. Like, you know, like how does Zappos stop being just so utilitarian? Like, you know, I want black dress shoes for work. Like, you know, I just kind of walked into Nordstrom's because I was looking for a little bit of inspiration, and they did a great job at helping me there. So I think that's where we get kind of try and get, we don't try and say Zappos is the answer to showrooming or anything. We just kind of get more inspiration from what brick and mortar does right.
I think that, I mean, that leads nicely. My next question was going to be, you know, who else do you guys think is doing it well? Who do you look to in the space? What other retailers and fashion brands maybe too?
Yeah.
Who do you think? Who's your opinion?
I mean, what from an experiential point of view?
Well, any, in terms of who's just doing stuff well.
Great stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think it's delivering on trust. It's delivering on added value. You know, it's, you know, if you look at, I mean, some of the, you know, John Lewis is a great UK example. You know, a lot of people don't really know who John Lewis is outside of the UK, but you know, they deliver on the brand promise in so many ways that it's the trust that makes people turn to them as a brand of first choice. And you know, and it's delivering that, or that experience gap that you know, Will's talking about. It's, you know, from an online point of view, there's some online players who are really trying to work out, you know, well, how can they put that experience in online, and you know, things like people who are using live chat, having some phenomenal success with that. You know, Ted Baker, you know, that kind of thing, really seeing a big uplift in sales, but actually, you know, beyond the sales, it's about, that was an easy, uplifting, you know, experience for me as a shopper, and I'll come back. And it's people who are thinking those things through, and you know, using the technology as an enabler, as John said, rather than as, you know, as a, you know, something to talk about or get PR about, that are getting the, you know, the really tangible, long-lasting value-add results.
Yeah, yeah. John, who do you look to? Who are you inspired by? Like, who do you think is doing great in this space?
Who inspires? So it's a tough one. So a lot of the stuff that we're actually doing, we're inventing from scratch. So in terms of inspiration, you know, we're trying to merge the art and the technology to build this story. But I mean, I recently was looking at Fab.com in New York in terms of what they did around.
Yeah, great example.
And it's just amazing how they took a product and actually turned it, for me, into a piece of art in terms of a story and how you could go through the product. And for me, that was a great example.
Amazing. And you know, you do, for those that don't know John's background, he did come from Burberry before, and obviously we're not going to go hugely in depth with your work at Burberry, but that kind of a background must give you a bit of a kick forward in terms of how to think with innovation.
Absolutely. You know, I learned a lot from my time at Burberry, and it's that kind of experiential kind of way of looking at things is what I've definitely, you know, taken from that experience. And you know, I'm hoping now to actually deliver more kind of these really beautiful experiences for customers to not only come in and be part of it, to actually benefit their shopping experience. So, you know, not looking at it as online or in store, but just looking at it as a John Lewis experience. I think that's what we're aspiring to. There's no experience.
I think the most interesting thing as well is that we talk a lot about tech, and obviously you guys are heavily involved in tech and collaborating with tech startups and vendors, but actually, you know, innovation just isn't necessarily around tech. I think it's quite nice for you to be talking about those smaller things where you're bringing people in from a very sort of in a small way, because experience, you know, we all talk in terms of tech because that is the really big, sexy subject for retail at the moment.
Well, it's tied to innovation.
Yeah, innovation can come from non-tech, from the non-tech arena, and as well in terms of customer and experience. And I think that's something that people forget. You know, the little things. You know, the innovation around giving a John Lewis customer a free newspaper if they spent more than £5, or you know, a cup of tea or coffee. Look at how that's driven their footfall. You know, that's not a tech experience. But it's an innovation that they absolutely knew, you know, that they hit on, and the customer reacted so well to it because it was, you know, just absolutely right for that market. So it's those little things. It's also, you know, so if you do start from, you know, the conversation not being just about tech, but about other stuff, you know, how can we innovate in small ways? Or, you know, when the Oasis, the clothing retailer, a couple of years ago started the, you know, were at the forefront of the whole 1 hour delivery from online. You know, they didn't a tech solution for it first out. They just thought, oh, how can we do this? And actually, you know, it was very kind of, quite low rent in the nicest possible way, in the sense that they thought, you know, well, physically we just need to get a few, you know, very small couriers in a town together and, you know, make it work. And it's not a tech solution, you know, and I think that's a really interesting thing.
But it can have an impact.
Yeah, a massive impact, you know, because retailers at the moment, they're on a journey. Even most of the big ones are on this journey for omni-channels. There are loads of big, heavy lifting to do, most of them on 3 to 5 year kind of projects on that. You know, you can't put this stuff all in overnight. There's loads of little things you can do that to improve the customer experience. And it's almost like having a non-tech innovation as well to think about, because there are other ways. But I think if you get everybody together and find out what the problems are, then, you know, the solutions can be tech or non-tech, and it's a way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. It definitely is a way of thinking. It's a nice angle to come to from it. And I guess, Will, on your side, maybe that, you know, even though essentially you are a technology company, being an online company, but your customer service angle undoubtedly kind of fulfills that space, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we still invest a ton in our customer service. Very proud of it. Look at it as a huge marketing channel, just because the word of mouth we get from our phone experiences. You know, I think I have 2 new people on my labs team that are just finishing their month of call center training this week. And that's our commitment to our customer service channel. And what's great about that is, like, it's subtle, but some of the best ideas that come out is when we're just talking with customers on the phone. And that's why even every holiday season, every Zappos employees does 8 to 10 more hours in the call center every holiday season. One, it helps because that's when we have the most calls, but that reinvigoration of, like, just talking to our customers again. Because sometimes we miss that, not having a physical store to walk around and stuff like that. So the phones help.
Is your version of it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess kind of off the back of what you were saying, you know, when we talked about innovation, we've talked a lot about what is customer facing, but actually innovation can be very much on the back end. And what are we seeing happening in that space from any of you guys? Like, you know, what are we doing with stock and with inventory and with, you know, the process of even getting things to the customer in the first place? Is there more happening on that side of innovation? Like, where do you think things really need to shift? You said this 3 to 5 year plan. Like, how much of it is focused on that back end?
Yeah, I mean, when you think of, I'm particularly talking about, for want of a better word, because I know everyone hates it, omni-channel, which is, you know, just basically all the things around transparent inventories and that kind of thing. But actually, you know, a lot of the tech we're seeing, the startups, you know, is based almost on an assumption that that's in place, but for most people it isn't.
Yeah.
So you know, and until it is in place, established retail businesses rather than startups with legacies, you know, retail businesses that have all the legacy, they've got to get that in place before they can really get, you know, the traction from this new tech.
Yeah. So
but they can also innovate by the back end. And I think that's the other thing, is it's great to put the customer at the heart of things, but, you know, in a way, you've also got the whole supply chain system in some of these retailers. And a lot of them are actually probably more likely to adapt to that tech you know, to some of these tech ideas quite quickly. We've got Macy's looking at visual search from a back-end point of view to just get stock out, you know, to identify stock faster.
Yeah.
You know, which is a really interesting idea. We've got, you know, Walmart putting iBeacons in lighting. You know, there's all sorts, you know, iBeacons for the back end as well as the front end. It's interesting that, you know, the vendors around beacons, beacon technology, are trying to sell it 2 ways at the moment, you know, because they don't know who's going to buy it first. Is it going to be the marketing environment? Well, probably not, because you know, the data isn't, you know, retailers databases aren't quite there. They're not quite sophisticated or agile enough to really make the use of what beacon technology could do. And then you've got the whole privacy issue layered on top of that. It's going to be a while before the real hard sell around beacons in terms of delivering to me dynamic pricing and great, you know, personalized messaging when I'm lingering over that red cashmere sweater in store. That's going to take a while, because, you know, everything else doesn't loop up. But, you know, a beacon can already give you really great imaging around what's working in your store in terms of footfall and what isn't, you know. And you can see the vendors kind of trying to work out, you know, who should I be really selling this into at the moment? Is it the B2B solution?
Yeah.
Or is it the B2C solution? And, you know, that innovation, some of these technologies, they'll be easier and quicker to make a real difference to a business in the back end. than the front end, because there's so many other issues on the straight to consumer side that have to be worked out and tweaked before we get there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Guys, is that a fair reflection in terms of the way that you're thinking too? Are you putting as much of your time spent focusing on things going on behind the scenes as opposed to just that customer facing experience?
I would say my lab team is pretty much more focused on the front end side of things. We definitely have people who, like product managers who own like our reporting systems, our supply chain systems, like our purchase order systems, who are always trying to optimize that. Our fulfillment warehouse, we actually work with Amazon on that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff's incredibly important, but I think that's where it's like, you can't expect one small team to do it all. That's where innovation has to happen with all of these groups, absolutely. And the visual stuff is really interesting. We've been looking at some stuff there as well.
Do you think they're as engaged in the at that end of the business, though? Are they engaged in the startup community in the same way? Because I think that's quite interesting. I'm not sure that many businesses have thought that one through, that perhaps that end of a business should be as engaged with the startup community as a customer-facing end of the business in terms of innovation.
I think we're getting a little bit better at just organizations, because I think what's interesting is there's just more startups who are caring about the unsexy back-end stuff now. I would say even like 2 years ago, maybe there's how many people are trying to think of, I'm going to help you I'm a startup that helps you optimize your supply chain. They're more
yeah, sure.
But I think we're actually seeing those now, or like data analytics better. And obviously there's thousands in the ad tech space, which is another world. But so I think as more startups are coming here, they're just increasing the global visibility of that entire group.
That's a good point.
Mm. And John, what about from your side?
So from my side, and from a selfish point of view, we, myself and our team, we constantly go back to look what the back end is doing, any new stuff that's coming in. We're constantly looking at new ways to actually use something. Can it support something that we're looking to do in a store? Can it give us inspiration in terms of something different we could do? And that's where, if it's being used 75%, I'm constantly going through the rest of the kind of package in terms of what's not being used and seeing if we can actually do something innovative there, or actually at least challenge and change the way people think and actually be quite disruptive in that front. And I think that's that's something that having only been here 6 months, is something that we're doing quite a lot of.
Well, this conversation has been amazing. I don't want it to end, but we are kind of getting near to that time. We've slightly gone over it actually, but to end on a really high note, I wanted to do something quite fun. I've got a list of technologies in front of me, and I was going to ask you like a bit of a quick fire round.
Great.
I'm going to say each one, and then I want each one of you to tell me whether you think retailers need to care about it, and whether they need to care about it, say, in, let's say, 18 months, in 3 to 5 years' time, or not at all. Okay? Does that make sense? Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. So, beacons. Lorna?
18 months.
Yeah. Guys, Will, what do you think? Beacons?
12 months.
Okay.
I like it.
Nice.
Like it.
18 months.
Okay, cool. Great. 3D printing?
5 years.
Everything 3 years.
Ooh, you're so cool.
18 months.
Ooh, 18 months.
Ooh.
So we're going to have another hangout, because now I want to know I now want to know why with each of these. Okay, next one, wearables. For a retailer, does a retailer need to care about wearables?
Yes. That wasn't an 18 months, 5 years or 18 months.
Really? Okay.
I'd say less than a year.
Okay.
I'd agree with Will.
Less than a year. Interesting. We're definitely going to have another hangout. Okay, drones. What do you think about drones?
Why do I always go first?
Sorry, you don't have to go first. Okay, we'll go the other way around. We'll go the other way around. John, drones.
3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Okay, cool. I've got so many. I'm trying to choose which one to choose next. Gesture control.
Never.
I don't know. I'm undecided on that. I've never thought about that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think 3 to 5 years. Maybe with the Internet of Things, then we're kind of in a different mode.
In a potentially something. Yeah, fair. I'm going to ask a silly one. Magic mirrors.
I hate them.
That's why I asked it. I knew that was her answer.
I want a good one, guys, a really good one, and I just haven't seen one. So you know, someone's going to come up with that one because my plea. So let's say 18 months. I don't know. Just a good one, please.
Yeah, I'd say less than a year for a good magic mirror.
Okay.
The same at 18 months, I think. Depends how magic they can really make.
How magic is a magic mirror. Okay, and last one, just because we mentioned it earlier, something like Oculus Rift, but virtual reality, essentially.
Oh, yeah, 3 years, I think, yeah.
Okay.
I'm 5 years on that.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking about it at the moment.
There you go. Okay, well, so we'll have to have another hangout, or we'll definitely have to have a chat at some point, so I can hear all about why you think 3D printing, wearables, drones, and everything else are going to be important for retail. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us.
Great.
Everybody watching, thank you for the questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but we will be on Twitter looking at them there, so join us there with the hashtag WGSN Hangout. And otherwise, we will see you in our next one, which I do believe is going to be about cross-section of art and fashion and where collaboration sits in that space. So we look forward to informing you on that one coming up soon. In the meantime, thank you so much to John and to Will and to Lorna for joining us today, and see you all soon.
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Bye.